Good afternoon. At this time, I would like to call to order the September 21st, 2023 regular meeting of the North County Transit District Board of Directors. Before we begin, members of the public who may be viewing the meeting on the district's YouTube page, please note that in order to make a public comment during the meeting, you must connect to the meeting using the Zoom link provided on the agenda. In addition, you must also register by sending an email containing your name or phone number and the agenda item on which you wish to speak to clerk@nctd.org. I will now ask our amazing clerk of the board, Suhel Rodriguez, to call roll. Suhel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board Member Weiss. Board Alternate Mayor Krantz.
Here.
Board Member Contreras.
Present.
Board Member Garcia. Board Member Desmond.
Here.
Board Member Druger.
Here.
Board Chair Edson.
Here.
Board Member Jenkins. Board Alternate Luna.
Here.
That completes the roll.
Thank you. Board Member and Mayor Krantz, welcome back. It's nice to see you. Would you please lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Suhel, please provide a safety brief and review evacuation procedures.
Yes, ma'am. In case of an emergency, I will dial 911. In case of an evacuation, please take the stairs. Do not use the elevators. Once cleared of the building, do not re-enter unless cleared to do so by emergency personnel. There are fire extinguishers and first aid kits on each floor of the building. There is a portable defibrillator on the first floor and staff on hand trained on CPR's procedures if needed. Due to the recent COVID cases in the county, we have taken precautions to eliminate or mitigate situations here in the agency. So please note you have a mask at your station at the dais. There's also available for the public outside in the corridor, as well as hand sanitizers for your use. This completes my safety brief.
Thank you very much, Suhel. Are there any changes to today's agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. Staff report 17 on consent has been revised to reflect the removal of one of the items that was not executed before the deadline. Those are all the changes.
Thank you very much. Suhel, do we have any non-agenda public comments today?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. At this time, registration to provide general public comments will end. Before we proceed, I have a couple of quick protocol items to share. First, I ask board members to please hold your comments and questions until after each agenda item has been presented. Second, when the time comes for board member questions or comments, please raise your hand and wait until you are called upon to speak. Finally, when it's your turn to speak, please remember to turn on and speak into your microphone. This will ensure that your comments are heard for those listening to our meeting online, and I think also for those who record our minutes. So thank you very much for that. The first item on our agenda today is recognition of one of NCTD's employees who has provided outstanding service while on duty. Karen Harris, Chief of Safety and Risk Management, will be presenting this item. Karen, you have our attention.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Board Director. There. Thank you, Madam Chair and Board of Directors. Today I have the honor of requesting an adoption of a proclamation honoring Christian Newborn. Christian, on August 19th, 2023, Christian Newborn, who is a conductor on our coaster train, he assisted in saving a passenger's life. He had heard from another passenger that there was someone that couldn't breathe. He went to check on that person and saw that that was indeed true. And he quickly reacted by calling in for medical assistance. And then he called on the PA of the train and asked if there was anyone on board who had medical experience. And sure enough, two passengers on the train, a Marine and a off-duty paramedic came to the aid of this passenger. They used the AED, the defibrillator that's installed on the train. And they were able to stabilize this passenger and save this person's life. So today we want to be able to recognize Mr. Christian and have him potentially take a picture with Madam Chair, if you're open to that. He leveraged his quick thinking. He remained calm and took action in an appropriate and outstanding manner.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that lovely presentation. And do we have, are we going to read this proclamation?
I don't think that we were planning on reading it, but we had the actual proclamation.
Okay. Oh, that would be a good idea. Okay, so Suhail, do we have any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any board questions or comments? No, I think you just got applause, which was, I think these were our comments and so at this time we need to adopt this proclamation. I move that we do so. May I have a second? Second by multiple people, including Supervisor Desmond. Please call the vote. Me.
Board Alternate Luna,
Yes.
Board Member Drucker,
Yes.
Board Alternate Krantz,
Yes.
Board Member Garcia, Board Member Weiss, Board Member Desmond,
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins.
Yes.
Madam Chair Edson,
Yes.
Board Member Contreras.
Yes.
On the motion of Board Chair Edson, seconded by Board Member Desmond to adopt a proclamation recognizing Christian Newborn for outstanding service, motion passes.
Okay, that next on the agenda is an update on the Sorrento Valley Coaster Connection Service. Chris Orlando, Chief Planning and Communications Officer, will be presenting this item. Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm joined by Katie Persons, our Director of Service Planning. She's coming here shortly. That's a tough act to follow, but we'll try with an update of the Sorrento Valley Coaster Connection. So I'll do a brief introduction with this item. If we go to the first slide, please, Suhail. So just as an overview, the MTS currently operates the Sorrento Valley Coaster Connection through Memorandum of Understanding with NCTD. This service provides first last mile connection for riders who use our coaster service and disembark at the Sorrento Valley or embark at the Sorrento Valley Coaster Station to reach the employment center in Sorrento Valley, in the La Jolla area, UCSD. There are 5 routes that you see there. And as noted, they provide an important first last mile connection for our coaster station at Sorrento Valley. You see the span of service there. This, as currently envisioned, is primarily a commuter service, operates Monday through Friday in the morning and afternoon peak hours. So that's what the service is currently. Next slide, please. This gives you a map of where the routes run. The dotted blue line there is the coaster line, and then the colored lines are the various routes. Two large chunks of service areas. So to the east, which would be the Sorrento Valley business area where Qualcomm, Quidel, a lot of the large employers are, and then the areas to the west, which would be UCSD, the Genesee corridor, in those type of areas. So it's these 5 routes that currently are operated. And you see our 101 also does service the upper La Jolla Scripps Hospital area as well, through that 101 service. The next slide, please. Under the current MOU, NCTD pays MTS for 50% of the operating costs for this service, and then $1 per rider. Right now, that cost averages about $230,000 a year, with the total cost of the operation to be estimated at about $500,000 a year to operate this service. Through ongoing conversations with MTS, they have indicated to us their intention to eliminate this service. It does not fit within their service portfolio right now due to their operator constraints. And we've been having ongoing meetings about alternatives and how we would still continue to cover this area. Per the terms of the MOU that was signed, requires MTS to provide 180 days advance notice to terminate the service. They have not yet provided that notice. These have been informal conversations that we've been having with them for planning purposes. And so our intention today is to give you an overview of the service, what some service options might be. As you'll see in the presentation, we view this area as critical to our coaster service and critical for the region. And so as we consider how to serve this area, how to keep customers, that use our coaster service able to access that platform, what the service options might be. So with that, I'll turn it over to Katie, and she's going to provide an overview of what the service looks like and ridership and options.
Thank you very much. So on the screen here, you'll see the ridership by route for the most recent fiscal year, FY 2023. In total, the 5 routes moved over 31,000 riders throughout the course of this past fiscal year. So ridership on the service has been impacted by the shift to remote work, but we are seeing slow increases over time as return to office policies are rolled out. In FY 2023, in particular, ridership was impacted by a work stoppage on the service that lasted about 2 months in the spring of 2023. So the numbers you're seeing on the screen there incorporate those major events. Next slide. In October of 2021, NCTD expanded coaster service for the first time substantially. At the time, we were not able to expand the frequency of SVCC connecting services due to operator constraints. So we utilized that opportunity to pilot an on-demand program in partnership with Lyft, Uber, and TripShot. And TripShot was our wheelchair accessible vehicle dispatch partner. The pilot service ran for 12 months between January 2022 and January 2023. The vouchers were available during coaster weekday span of service, and in total, just under 1,200 trips were taken throughout that year. So we had a lot of lessons learned for service within this sub area through that NCTD Plus pilot. Next slide. We wanted to highlight the relative importance of Sorrento Valley to the region. Sorrento Valley is the largest employment center in San Diego County with about 129,000 jobs alongside 57,000 residents in the area. About 14.5% of those working in Sorrento Valley are traveling from one of 8 North County cities. While remote trends certainly impacted the area over the last 2 years, we're starting to see very major employers roll out significant return to work policies of 4 days in the office per week. You also have major medical facilities such as UCSD and Scripps in the area. Next slide. So NCTD has a few options available to us to backfill the proposed elimination of service. Each of these comes with distinct operational constraints. The first of these options is to replace the service with a similar fixed route or deviated fixed route service with adjustments made to service span or routing based upon the results of our planned public outreach. So this service would utilize NCTD vehicles and operators, which are of course still constrained. The second option is to replace existing service with microtransit service. So you may recall that NCTD recently awarded a contract to Spare Labs and is working through the implementation of microtransit service. So what that might look like is 2 distinct microtransit zones, one for the Eastern Sorrento Valley portion and one for the Western Sorrento Valley portion, with service span boundaries dictated by public outreach. And then last, the third option would be to implement a combined approach. This would include establishing a fixed route service for the Western Sorrento Valley portion, including UCSD and the surrounding area, which has high demand generators concentrated at key locations. For Eastern Sorrento Valley, in which the employment is spread across multiple business parks and less concentrated than West Sorrento Valley, we would establish an on-demand microtransit zone. Again, those certain service parameters would be informed by that public outreach that we intend to do. Next slide. So these next couple of slides just kind of reiterate what I just said, but are more visual illustrations of what that might look like. So one option available to us is to implement a modified fixed route service for the area. What you see on the screen here is the exact routing of what MTS is operating today. We would like to implement some tweaks and adjustments based on changes that have occurred in Sorrento Valley over the last couple of years. But essentially, this option would include a modified fixed route version. This next slide shows a microtransit only option. So you would have 2 distinct microtransit zones, one serving that more spread out Eastern Sorrento Valley area and another spreading out, serving the Western Sorrento Valley area. And that is really intended to just ensure that trip distances and trip times aren't too long, but we're still able to serve the major employment centers in the area. And then last slide, we have a hybrid approach. So you would have fixed routes serving the more concentrated employment centers on that west side, and then you would have the Sorrento Valley microtransit zone on the eastern side. And with that, I'll hand it over to Chris.
So there are a number of operational considerations as we're working through the options. As you will note, this area is quite a distance from our west bus yard. We'll show you a slide of what that means in a moment, but that creates a significant operational challenge, and particularly in terms of the fixed route service. We also have vehicle storage and maintenance and security issues. So in an ideal scenario, we would store vehicles close to where they would be operating. We do not currently have vehicle storage in the southern part of our service area. And so that creates an operational challenge in terms of getting the vehicles where they need to be to go into revenue service. Along with that would be how do you fuel those vehicles once they're in service and overnight and maintain them? So another operational challenge. MTS has operated this service as a deviated fixed route service, which means there is very limited bus stop infrastructure within the service area. So those fixed routes you see, there are a very limited number of actual bus stops in those locations because they have operated as a deviated fixed route, which means it's more of an on-demand service. And so we do have a bus route infrastructure challenge. And then generally, the constraint that we've been dealing with over the last year and a half or so is operator availability. So we want to make sure that as we look at options around this service, we also take into account the ability to continue on our service restoration plan that we've been working towards, both with the upcoming October service change and then in April with our what will be the final service restoration change to get us back to where we were before the operator shortage crisis. So those are some considerations. I'm wanting to dig in, next slide, please, a little bit onto the distance challenge. So the facility, Sorrento Valley Coaster Station, is about 26 miles away from our west bus yard. And so what that means operationally is if you use personnel or vehicles from our west bus, which is right now the closest facility, they have what's called a deadhead period where they have to drive without passengers to get to the station to begin the routes. So it creates considerable inefficiencies in terms of time, vehicle miles, driver hours, all of those things, which is why we are looking at, can we stage vehicles in the area to make it more efficient way to operate the service. You'll note we have on this map the Copley division, which is an MTS division, which is much closer, a little over 7 miles from this facility. So one of our discussion items with MTS is the possibility of using Copley to store the buses at least for a limited period of time while we serve the area, so that we don't have to face the significant deadhead period that you see on the screen there. So just wanted to point that out to you. So process wise, we're not asking the board to make a decision today on this. We wanted to present this as an information item only, let you know that we are working on this and working towards a solution. Staff next month will be doing intercept surveys with riders on this service. So we will be going out to the folks who use the service currently and conducting a survey to give us more information about how they use the service, what their preferences are. We'll use that to help inform the service plan. That'll start in October. We'll also do that via QR codes and other things on the platforms to make sure we can get as much information as possible. We'll also be doing employer outreach to get some input from employers in that area about their employee preferences. There are several active employee shuttles in the area, as in addition to a shuttle that the VA runs. So quite a few folks who use the service use those services. So we want to make sure that whatever service option we do complements and leverages that existing service. So we'll be doing some targeted employer outreach. And then we will use that information between the public outreach and the employer outreach to inform what we eventually, of the 3 options, what we eventually come back and recommend to the board and do the public outreach around. So that's going to be our process. Next slide, please. So next steps. So we are developing transition plans based on the information we've presented to you. So that would include both the exploring the options that we've described, doing that public outreach. It also includes how we hand off this service between MTS and NCTD. So we are in active discussions with them about the vehicles, the equipment that goes along with it, and the storage at Copley, as I noted earlier. So we will be developing an agreement with them for the transition of the service, as well as dissolution of the existing MOU as part of that. Depending on how we do the service, it will likely require a formal public input and public review process, as we typically do when we add service. So it would come to the board back at that juncture where we would, as we would do a normal service change, where we open a public hearing, review the service, and then it comes to the board for approval. So you will get to see this again in more detail and with the preferred plan. So this today is just intended to give you an introduction to it. The timing of all of this will be dependent upon MTS's process. So where they are currently in their time frame is they will be presenting this item to their board in an upcoming board meeting as a service reduction. They will need to go through the public review process for a service reduction, as we would have to do. Their process looks a little bit different than ours, but is very similar. So dependent on the timing of that, both their board meeting and their public review process, they would then provide us that written notice, and it would begin the 180-day clock for us to transition to the service. So there is some time frame on this. So we do have a fair amount of time to work through these plans. But standing up a service like this, particularly in an area that's so far from our core service, is going to present a challenge. So we wanted to get it in front of you all, just to introduce the item and begin your knowledge of what we're doing. And with that we will take any questions.
Thank you, Chris and Katie, for that presentation. Suhail, do we have any public comments on this item today?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. At this time, public registration to speak on this item will end. Board members, do you have any questions? I'll start at that end. Board Member Contreras.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I wanted to follow up on a previous question that I've had about NCTD Plus, the pilot program. It looks like there is significantly more folks being able to use that. What I am not sure of is how many times individuals tried to get a ride and weren't able to get a ride due to constraints on Uber and Lyft. Have we figured out if that's something that those organizations would provide that data to us, or where are we on that?
Yes, we did request that information from both of the providers for the Vista pilot specifically. One of the providers did give us an overview of information of basically service requests within the Vista pilot zone, so we can share that in a memo after this board meeting. But we do have information on number of requests, the wait time for those requests, and then the canceled or unfulfilled requests. So we can provide that information for one of the providers.
Okay, yeah, I feel like we were paying what, $7 NCTD. So, we're paying a significant amount of money for these Uber and Lyft. And for both providers to not be making that data available is unacceptable. That's incredibly important information, I think, for us as a board to be able to see, and for this agency to be able to see as well. Because at the end of the day, that data is really what we were looking forward to seeing as we try to build out our own micro transit. So I just want to flag that again, that these two corporations should really be willing to give that information to us. And if they're not, then I'm not exactly sure what the reason would be, other than they're hiding something. So, that's just the way it is, right? I mean, we have to be really transparent, and maybe they don't have to. So this could be a new, playing field for them. But, I'm not interested in having a provider that doesn't want to, take the $7 and play within the parameters that we have set forth. I think it's really important to be able to have open access to that data. Okay. So really interesting to see these three different options. So the public outreach is, the presentation to the public is going to be that there's these three different options, and which one do you want, or how do the three options and public input connect?
Yeah, so there'd essentially be 2 rounds of public outreach. So this October public outreach would be survey questions that will help inform us staff making a decision, whether it's fixed route, microtransit, or both. And then we would initiate the public hearing, which would include additional forms of public outreach via pop-ups or an additional survey if needed, with a recommended service to the public to then comment on. So we'd really approach October as kind of information gathering to help inform one decision, and then present that decision to the public for their comments again.
Okay. And I know there's a lot of different employers in this area. And I think there's going to be more development both on, employment and on housing. So, could this potentially be a good opportunity to have more employers engage in, it's almost like a marketing part that could be built into the public outreach, and maybe we could get more ridership. Is that something that's being taken into consideration?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, absolutely. And we think there are a lot of opportunities to both improve the fixed route, or if we come up with a different solution to promote that. These routes, we've never felt these routes were properly marketed or designed to really leverage the coaster station. And so actually, Sue, can you go back to go back right there. Okay. One more right here. So if you look at the service map here, so it's things like if you see the 972 and then to the right, you'll see that area where the 972 sort of does that backwards L, but then stops. That whole area to the right of that is actually, there are several major employers in that area that aren't even covered by the existing route. So there are major changes, but there are definitely things we can do to drive ridership in the area. Everything from the marketing to tweaking the routes so they access better some of the key employers in the area. So that's what we'll be looking at in the next several months as we figure out this plan.
And I see that under the micro transit hybrid and non-hybrid option, that you do capture past that backwards L point. So I'm guessing that that was something that was taken into consideration. Hey, there's a lot of opportunity for ridership expansion if we were to just expand the service area. Okay. And my last question, actually, I have two more questions. One of them is about the micro transit. Now, are these vehicles smaller? Does that mean that there's a potentially a larger pool of operators that we can take from that need maybe like less training, or what, how does that work?
They are smaller vehicles, but it's essentially the same pool we use for our lift operation. So which functions as somewhat of an on-demand service. So it does tap our existing pool. So the vehicles are the vans that you see, and those would be the vehicles that we'll use for the microtransit.
Okay. And do those have the ability to put bicycles on them?
I don't believe they do.
Okay, just because of the times that I've been at this station, I've seen a lot of folks riding their bike.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the connection is, but that could be potentially a missed opportunity if folks can't connect using their bicycle or something like
Yeah,
that
and-
as
and
well.
That really underscores the importance of this, because if you've been to that station, you know, it is a bit of a desert. There's not, when you go to that station, there's not much around it besides industrial areas. So for that station to be effective, we really do have to have some connection there, or folks, there'd be no way to get to the major areas without it.
Right, and that kind of, leads into another question I was going to ask. Is this station, are we looking at, reconfiguring the station at all? I mean, I see this long strip of parking and we're talking about not having vehicle storage, but if these vehicles are a lot smaller, is there the potential to reorganize the footprint? I know it's not that big,
Yeah.
but can we have vehicle storage there?
We've looked at that. It raises some security and overnight issues and fueling and maintenance and things like that. So we're not, that's something we're looking at. We're not hopeful that that's a good option at this point.
Just because there's not,
There's not the infrastructure
Yeah.
there to support.
I mean, that would probably be quite expensive to try to, since this is MTS's service area, but it is a critical station for NCTD, when we're looking at the Copley division, for vehicle storage, do we have to pay for that?
That would be subject to what we work out with MTS in terms of the transition. So we're talking with them about that, along with the disposition of the vehicles. So there might be an opportunity for us to leverage their existing fleet to provide the fleet for this service. So they're open to those discussions where they net out. We're too premature to know, but yeah, that's one of the things we're talking with them about.
And these, they use primarily CNG, right? Like smaller buses for this?
The
These
Eldorados,
routes?
yeah,
Yeah,
the cutaways, yeah.
interesting. All right, well, that's all from me at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Supervisor Desmond?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. And is this going to be cost neutral? Because basically, or what is it? Because we're paying half right now, plus $1 a rider.
Yeah.
But it's MTS's buses. So now we're going to have more buses and more personnel and double the costs.
Yeah, so it won't be cost neutral.
Okay.
This will cost us, as you noted, we pay half. So it's roughly their estimates for FY 24 and 25 are about 507,000, 525,000 to do the service. So we would pay, under the current agreement, we would pay half that. The reality is this will be more expensive for us to operate because of the constraints we talked about in the presentation. So yeah, it won't be cost neutral for us. There will be a cost to this.
And we got to have drivers and equipment and everything else to do.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, it's been a while, it was pre-COVID when I rode the coaster downtown, but I'd see the Qualcomm buses and I guess there's a VA bus, and I don't know if there was other entities that had buses. So are we getting their leftovers, or I'm just kind of curious what they're operating? I guess they have their own buses and they probably don't charge for that, do they?
No, they don't. It's part of the employment.
Yeah.
And those are some of the large ones, but there's not many, and there are many other employers in that area. So that doesn't cover all of the employees. So yeah. And although I will say the VA bus, other folks do jump on the VA bus because it's less specific to
Don't put that out.
to the employer, but they do.
Yeah.
Folks are trying to get from the station to where they need to go. They're finding any means,
Oh.
it's
And then-
happening.
The micro transit, so there's no fixed route. Is that just like an app you call up for a ride or something like that?
Yep, that's what the spare platform that we're implementing does. It is the app both on the front end, so the riders That's would be how they book and schedule their rides. And then on the back end, how we schedule the drivers, establish the routes and the pickups and all of that. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, good luck. And I guess we'll find out what the ridership wants and all right, thank you.
Board Member Drucker.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Just to kind of follow on that, obviously, you're going to be talking to Qualcomm and UCSD. They do have their own bus routes, et cetera, right? In terms of chatting with some of the other employers, there's two affinity groups, shall we say, Biocom and Tech San Diego. So if you should be chatting with them. They represent a whole lot of the smaller companies in the area. Biocom, obviously, a whole lot of the big, also the big ones, but they should have some input into that and also help in terms of marketing. Also, are you chatting with Sandag?
Yeah, we are, yes, and they have their commuter program promotion programs as well that we're leveraging also because they do a lot of outreach around the iCommute and all of that. So we're working with them as well.
Yeah, so for me, this is an extremely important connection. This is the major employment center in San Diego, and we need to be supporting that. So we get people to work is basically the idea. It would seem that Sandag would be very interested in helping us with this. But then on the other hand, MTS does collect the sales tax for that area, and we don't get a penny of that. So it would make sense that if they are not going to provide the service, that they do something in lieu, which would mean us being able to use Copley for free or something like that.
Yeah, those are the types of issues we're in discussions with them about.
Yeah. So just as history, this is a long time ago, there used to be a joint commission for transit where 3 members of the NCTD board and 3 members of the MTS board would get together on a quarterly basis to discuss these types of issues. That was dropped sometime in 2008, 2010, somewhere in that time frame. But there was the idea that we should be chatting about these because of this interface this is an interface between NCTD and MTS. And it's the most important interface at this point because it is the largest employer. And I want to make sure that we as a board are going to service this area as best we can.
Thank you for those comments. Board Member Jenkins.
I have a few questions. I wanted to understand the numbers a little better. On page 4, you talked about the 31,000 riders. Those are on the particular bus routes only, correct? And so approximately how many riders, and maybe you don't know this right now, go into that station on the coaster? I'm just curious, what's the hard to say?
Yeah, it
Okay,
is our 3rd largest station,
Okay.
most active station, so it's a critical station. for
right.
us. Yeah.
Right. And then you mentioned about there's no page here, but you have on here 1139 NCTD plus ridership, 1139 total trips taken. Is that what are those trips?
So those were through the NCTD Plus with Uber and Lyft. So those.
Those were
trips. Yeah. So those were through.
Okay.
The trips that we gave the vouchers for someone to take an Uber or Lyft.
Okay.
During that pilot program. Yeah.
Okay, so, and then, I guess my couple questions would be, it's about $500,000 roughly to run this. Obviously, it's more cost effective for somebody on the southern end to run it than it is for us. Is there any way to entice MTS and/or Sandag, but MTS to continue this? Because it seems like number-wise, that might make more sense than all of a sudden us absorbing $500,000.
That's sort of been the history of this service. As you see, that's sort of the genesis of the existing MOU where we paid for half of the service plus the $1 per rider. So what they've said to us is that, in terms of priority for them, and as they look at their full service area, these routes just aren't as productive, as they implement their service on limited resources. And so particularly in their current operator availability. So, when you look at these routes and the productivity of these routes versus their, routes in more dense areas, they just don't perform as well. But for us, as has been noted, they're very critical connection for the coaster. And we argue critical for the region in terms of
Right.
connectivity for the employment area, school, UTC, all of those things. So, this is the initial conversation about this. So we'll be exploring all of those, both how we can get additional or continued participation from MTS, whether that's, vehicles, Copley, or whatever else we're able to work with them on, as well as if there's opportunity for Sandak to participate in some way.
Mhm. And you mentioned about the Copley, do you call it a station? What is it called?
Bus yard.
Bus yard.
Yeah.
So we let MTS come into Escondido,
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
Do we charge them to come into Escondido? Okay,
Yeah, and we go into the service already. It's their service area already with the 101, which goes all the way to UTC.
okay,
Yeah, and uses those stops at UTC as well.
okay.
Yeah, so there's a history of the intermingled service in that
Right.
area for sure.
Right. Okay, well, I appreciate, I think, I appreciate the board knowing, having a heads up now about this, because like you said, it's the third largest area. So that's pretty serious. We're just getting people back on the coaster, and then we're gonna say, oh, sorry, we can get you there. You're on your own the rest of the way. So I mean, it's like we take a step forward and we go 2 steps back. So yeah, I think it's critical that we figure out how to make it work, so we keep that ridership going and increasing. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Jenkins. Any questions from Board Member Krantz? Comments too?
It's a bit frustrating, like she just mentioned, this is an important ridership demographic for us. And when we talk about the demographics, and you identify these employers, are we, looking at the slide that shows the ridership on each of these routes, how deep down are we going to be able to drill to find out where these people are going and what time of day they're going? I see Scripps Green on there, so that tells me that, nursing shift work is pretty specific in terms of when that ridership to and from would likely be. There are other areas that I see that would probably fit that similar profiles.
Yeah, so our survey that will launch in October will have several questions about what time, how often throughout the week they're going into work, and where specifically they're traveling to and traveling from. So we're hoping to get as much location-based data and time-based data that we can out of that survey to help inform. We'll also have specific questions about what existing routes they're riding, or if they're riding an employer-sponsored shuttle, just to understand kind of some of the patterns out of that coaster station to help inform.
Else?
The other piece of that is the pilot program, the NCT pilot program. While we don't get all the data we want out of that, what we do get is the destination start and stop. So we do, for those 1,100 plus rides, we do know where they came from and where they went and the times they came and went. So that's another data point for us to use as we figure this out.
I also know a young man who just recently graduated from UCSD who spent the last 2 years of his school year education time as a bus driver. They have a fairly sophisticated bus service at UCSD. And, I hope we'll explore whether there's any opportunity to execute an MOU with UCSD. They probably have the facilities for maintenance and, it's closer even than Copley.
Yeah, and we've had those initial conversations.
Okay.
So that is a path for us. So that they do have facilities, they have bus yards in the area. So that is one of the options we're looking at.
Any other questions from board members? Before you go weigh in, I'm going to ask a question of my own or two. So I have kind of a nuts and bolts question. It's the first one is pretty simple. So we've got route numbers for MTS, right? And they've got signage. et cetera. Would we be keeping those route numbers? It's going to be branded at MTS, right? So we would still need to replace them all?
Yeah, we'd likely sync those with our routes and then we would change the signage. So that's one of the considerations as we work through this. There are not, other than there's signage at the station that indicates the route numbers, but on the actual routes, there's not a lot of existing signage, there's not a lot of existing stops. So it's one of the considerations we're looking at in terms of when we do this plan.
And with the major employers that actually offer shuttle service, do they, how successful are they? Are their shuttles full? Are they half used? Do you have any idea?
We don't have any specific data on that, but that's one of the things that we will be engaging with them about is the utilization, how they do it, the times, those sorts of things, and to see. Again, we want to be complimentary to that service because if they're already providing it, we want to make sure what we're doing fits well within that. So that's one of the points of engagement.
Is there the potential for a partnership whereby, say, let's just go with Qualcomm, non-Qualcomm employees could use a Qualcomm shuttle if they're working nearby, and just pay so that we reimburse Qualcomm for that shuttle ride versus a TNC?
Yeah, that's not currently there, but that could be one option we look at, other than some folks jumping on the VA shuttle. Other than that, I don't know there's anything formal, but that's a good option to look at in terms of could we supplement what we need to do through the employer vehicle or programs for sure.
I mean, it makes sense. It's carpooling or van pooling at its heart. I think I had one other question here. So this, I think, Board Member Drucker was mentioning, gee, we should be getting this for free if they're getting the sales tax. So will we at least get a population credit? You know, Sandag gives us a certain percentage of population-based dollars. Will this increase our population-based dollars?
We'll have to explore that, not currently, but we'll have to look at it. Again, we'll be engaging with MTS for not only the discontinuation of the existing MOU, but entering into a new MOU to cover things like the vehicles, potential storage, signage, all of those things. So that with them, that might be one consideration. And then Sandag would be what you're talking about, if there's a way that the region would help supplement this service.
Yes. So for example, the 101 route, which is in MTS territory, we don't pay for that. We have a little kind of handshake, right? But we also, in that case, don't receive any population balance money.
Right.
That's interesting. Something to pursue, perhaps.
It's as noted earlier, it's an area where we overlap quite a bit.
Right. It's pretty dense around, especially UCSD and UTC and that area. So it would be nice to get a piece of that pie if we're providing the service. Seems fair. I believe Director Contreras, you have another question?
Yeah, those were great questions. I really think that everything that was discussed should be looked into, and we need to find every dollar possible. Especially it's just not our service area, but I understand it's a very critical station. Are we also this is City of San Diego, are we also conversing with the impacted districts? I think this is in District 1 of the city. They have a significant transit desert in this. So I think, the comments about looking at Sandag, I think also looking at the city, I think they were just going through a community plan update in this area as well around UCSD. So it'd be interesting to see, if we take over these routes, if there could be significant improvements to the bus stops. And, I don't know if we could get with the chamber at, San Diego. I mean, I just think there's a really good starting point to get even more ridership.
Yeah, no, City of San Diego will be a key stakeholder in this process for the things you've mentioned, bus infrastructure or stop infrastructure. For sure. I know they have a key interest in this. We have engaged with them currently on it. So they're aware. It's early yet, but yeah, those are the types of things we'll be talking with them.
Okay, awesome. That was my last little tidbit that I wanted to add.
Great. Well, thank you. Great presentation, great questions, great comments. So we look forward to you coming back to us with a magical thing. There's no vote required. This is an information only item. Next, we have minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting of July 20th, 2023?
So moved.
Motion by Jenkins. Second by Contreras. Please call the vote.
Board Alternate Luna,
I'm going to abstain. I was not here.
Board Member Drucker,
Yes.
Board Alternate Krantz,
I'll abstain too.
Board Member Garcia, Board Member Weiss, Board Member Desmond.
Yeah.
Board Member Jenkins,
Yes.
Board Chair Edson,
Yes.
Board Member Contreras.
Aye.
On the motion of Board Member Jenkins, seconded by Board Member Contreras to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 20th, 2023. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Board Alternate Luna and Board Alternate Kranz abstain.
Excuse me for interrupting.
It's okay.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes for the August 14th, 2023 special board meeting. Motion by Edson, second by
Contreras.
Contreras.
Board Alternate Luna,
Once again, I will abstain.
Board Member Drucker,
Yes.
Board Alternate Kranz,
I'll abstain.
Board Member Garcia, Board Member Weiss, Board Member Desmond.
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins,
Yes.
Board Chair Edson,
Yes.
Board Member Contreras.
Aye.
On the motion of Board Chair Edson, seconded by Board Member Contreras to approve the minutes of the special board meeting of August 14th, 2023. Motion passes with Board Alternate Luna and Kranz abstaining, Board Member Garcia absent.
Thank you very much. We have, I believe, 17 consent items. Is that correct? 16 consent items on the agenda for action today. And have any members of the public requested that any consent items be pulled?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're ending public registration to speak on consent items. Do any board members wish to pull any consent items?
Move to approve the consent.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Maybe I missed something. I see 18 on here. And we should read 18. Oh, thank you. Got it.
That's where I was on 17. I was like, oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion by Desmond. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Jenkins. Please call the vote.
Board Alternate Luna,
Yes.
Board Member Drucker,
Yes.
Board Alternate Kranz,
Yes.
Board Member Garcia, Board Member Weiss, Board Member Desmond,
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins,
Yes.
Board Chair Edson,
Yes.
Board Member Contreras.
Aye.
On the motion of Board Member Desmond, seconded by Board Member Jenkins to approve consent items 3 through 18. Motion passes. Board Member Garcia absent.
Thank you very much. This brings us to the Executive Director's report. Until our interim Executive Director, Paul Ballard, returns on Monday, Ms. Tracy Foster is the acting Executive Director. Ms. Foster, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Board members, do you have anything to report? Seeing no hands raised. Oh, yes. Director Contreras.
I just want to say that I'm really glad to see, I think all the issues with the Sprinter are taken care of, right? It has been a nightmare because I was using the Sprinter or trying to use the Sprinter and it wasn't sprinting too much. So I'm really looking forward to having everything back to normal. Thanks.
Thank you for that comment. I second that comment. So it was, I do have a couple of board member announcements. It was recently announced that the multi-day music festival Kaboo will be returning to the 22nd DAA Del Mar Fairgrounds in September of 2024. Daily attendance will be capped at 35K. While smaller than in the past, it should still provide the opportunity to serve plenty of coaster riders as well as bus riders, hopefully. On Tuesday, the committee also received a 2023 fair report. I was excited to learn that more than 13% of the 997,720 folks that attended utilized some form of public transportation, and that this year's Fair Tripper alone had an increase in ridership of 115% over 2022. The DAA staff and board strongly suggested that the district's 408 fare bus from Escondido to the fairgrounds be reinstated in 2024. I support that request because it had wide ridership. We just didn't have drivers. So hopefully we'll have some drivers by then and we can bring that bus back. So with that, Suhel, do we have any remaining public comments?
No, Madam Chair.
At this time, registration to speak on public communications has ended. Thank you all. The next scheduled meetings are the Executive Committee meeting, October 2nd, 2023 at 11 a.m. Executive Committee meeting, October 19th, 2023 at 11 a.m. As you can tell, Executive Committee is going to be kind of busy. Regular board meeting, October 19th, 2023 at 2 p.m. MISPIDA, the Marketing, Service Planning and Business Development Committee meeting on October 31st, 2023 at 1 p.m. Before we adjourn, I want to take a moment to honor Jackie, as she's known, Jordan. She's a longtime bus operator who recently passed away from pancreatic cancer. Jackie was a Breeze operator for 10 years. She was known throughout bus operations for her big heart and infectious smile. So much so that Jackie became the face of NCTD and MV Transit on recruiting posters placed all over North County. Jackie was a dedicated employee. She loved driving her regular 101 evening route, and her passengers loved her. Everything was fun to Jackie. She was described as always laughing. She loved spending time outside of work with many of her colleagues, going to the beach, vacationing on cruises, and visiting casinos. Before moving to Oceanside, Jackie lived in various states, including Virginia and New Jersey. She spent time working in the White House and for Congress. Jackie's smile will be missed around NCTD, in the driver's room, on her bus, and by her family. So please join me in a big smile as we adjourn this meeting in honor of Jackie Jordan. Thanks all. We're adjourned.